What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I finished Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story. Um, the only person who I've seen be upset about this is Eric Menendez, so I didn't feel as bad watching this, but I didn't watch Monster because a lot of the victims' families were like begging and pleading for Monster to not happen, and trying to say that they don't want to relive that, and yeah. So I didn't watch Monster. I think you know this sensationalism thing doesn't necessarily work if people who were involved in it are saying no. I mean, if you I feel like we're close to making, a film about a mass shooting. And if the survivors of the mass shooting are all telling you no, then don't do it, you know? Um, so, I mean, if you make a Columbine movie, but all the kids that were at Columbine are like, don't do this. I'm not going to watch a Columbine movie. It's not, I don't, that's just how it is. Like it's exploitative in some ways. So, how do I feel about Monsters? Well, we'll talk about it. But first, for my blind audience, I do have a black hat on. It's backwards, black sunglasses, and I'm wearing a Mandalorian shirt, which is another TV series, which is perhaps better than Monsters. Perhaps not. I haven't told you yet. I've been trying to keep my neutral face. What's really interesting also is watching, because this series premiered in and around American Sports Story, which I've already reviewed the first 2 episodes of that. And that had me very conflicted about representing Aaron Hernandez and what Ryan Murphy was trying to say there. And I felt like that show is very apologetic and trying to make excuses and introduce a lot of ideas, especially in the first 2 episodes of, well, he was just a good guy with really dealt a bad hand in life. It doesn't really take ownership for what Aaron Hernandez has done. Maybe he will by the end of the run. I don't know if he'll make it to the end of the run. That's the problem with the shows, is you never know. Your audience doesn't have to watch you. You're lucky to get them for the first episode. So every subsequent episode is a gift. That's how shows work. Like, I'm gifting you my time. So if your first episode doesn't work, I'm not going to watch you again. I watched 1 episode of Rescue High Surf. I never want to see it again. So I don't care what happens in later episodes. I'm just not going to watch it. There are better things to watch on TV. So with Monsters, the first episode has the murder in it. I think that's important to note. Also, spoilers it's tough to deal with spoilers here because this is like a true thing that happened a long time ago. So I feel like people are familiar with it, but at the same time, generationally, younger people may not be as familiar with the story. So to them, this would be like all new. I don't know, like how many 18 to 25-year-olds are necessarily super familiar with Eric and Lyle Menendez. First episode features absolutely brutal killing, and I have to say, the team, International Digital Center, Stephen Christopher, Amanda Baton, fantastic work this season on the show. The audio description knew exactly how to maintain. This show has so many weird levels to it. And Ryan Murphy's direction for the series. Paris Barclay's credited for direction of many episodes, but let's face it, Ryan Murphy he's the hand that rocks this cradle. Sometimes, he's the one that's doing the wizardry. He is Oz, the great and powerful, for everything he's doing, regardless of who is officially attached to it. It's odd. They make odd choices. And they're choices that, as the series progressed, I was like, I wonder how they're going to finish this. So I was really intrigued to see how this would go, more so than I am with American Sports Story, where they start off and immediately they're very apologetic. And Aaron is painted in a very different way, but not in the right way. Like, he's never presented as a good guy that actually does good things. It's not like you see him like out there working for charities and stuff, and like, I don't know, helping old ladies across the road or anything. Uh, he's in these situations that suck, but he doesn't actually do anything positive or bring positive change to the world. And then, so it's like, you want me to sympathize with him because you want me to, you're showing me that he didn't have a great start to his life, and it was a situation of circumstances. But there's nothing, but you can't find anything positive to show us that he ever brought to the world. You know what I'm saying? He's not even like the older brother that's protective of the younger brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing there. So you're just coming up with excuses for him, is that's like the first 2 episodes of American Sports Story. So Monsters has a lot of that in it too. It's a lot of throwing shit at the wall and leaving you walking away with, what the fuck was that? Like, by the end of the series, you're shown so much from everybody's perspective. Everybody has a story to tell that you don't even know what the truth is anymore, because Lyle and Eric are obviously lying about most, if not all, of everything they've ever said. But yet, a lot of times they'll tell a story and then it'll be shown as a flashback, like as if we're building that story. We're building this, well, this was their reality. But was it their reality? Because then it'll show sort of like an alternative flashback of the same kind. So you never really get an answer as to like what their life was like. And so you're left to sort of Ryan Murphy's interpretation of these characters to be like, well, how do you feel about this? And I'm like, I don't know. I know how I feel about Ryan Murphy, but I wasn't a fan of Eric and Lyle Menendez before. But he has an entire episode where he allows Eric Menendez to sit there and talk in graphic detail about being raped as a kid over and over. Like, it's a whole episode. That's the only thing that happens, is it's just Eric Menendez. His lawyer comes in the room, and she's like, yeah, we're wanting to talk to you and get him to open up, and he does. And he talks about it. But at the same time, it's also mentioned to be a lie by several people, that it's all bullshit. And the show can't figure out whether or not to decide whether or not it's bullshit or the truth. So it shows you both. So it leaves you with nothing, because there's nothing there. And to give such credence to it as to give an entire episode to somebody who may not have actually ever been sexually assaulted, who's a real person, by the way, when there are plenty of people who are sexually assaulted, bothers me. If you're like, this is a person who might have lied, probably lied, is sort of a known liar. There are many of documented lies that they have. And it says at the end that it maintains the fact that they were sexually assaulted. Like, that's the thing that they've maintained. But it also brings up a point that there were plenty of times where they didn't bring it up. Like, they were in therapy and they didn't bring it up. And like, why didn't they ever talk about it with anybody else? And certain family members, they have like a maid that was like a live-in maid for a while. And she's like, no, none of this ever happened. So like, there are these characters that come in and out of the franchise that counterbalance what Lyle and Eric are saying. So, and remember, this is all choices. These are choices that Ryan and his team and his team of writers, directors, showrunners, whatever, they're all making these choices. So they make this choice to just kind of show you everything as if everybody's telling the truth, even though none of it makes any sense when you look at all of it. And it's very contradictory, as if they're like, well, you be the judge. I'm like, you're putting the name monsters in front of the series? This isn't like a question of did they do it. If you are questioning their guilt, maybe you should flip the Eric and Lyle Menendez story with American Sports Story, and because that doesn't have, again, one of my problems with the Aaron Hernandez thing is that they created a whole new genre for him, American Sports Story, instead of American Crime Story. You know, he's also not part of Monster. So it's like they're really trying to make you not see Aaron Hernandez for what he is. But here, it's like they want you to sympathize with Eric and Lyle Menendez in a series called Monsters. Or they want you to have, I was like, are they trying to say, you know, like, well, monsters means more than just Eric and Lyle. It also means, look at all the other monsters that were around them. Their parents were monsters. Their psychiatrist was a monster. Look at all the monsters in the world. It's this very, you know, like, there's that too. I mean, okay, so they did what they did. Let's say they're telling the truth. It makes their parents horrible. So then they are monsters. Let's say that the psychiatrist who was problematic, his girlfriend gives his testimony. If you take it and you say that's 100% true, he's a terrible person. He's a monster. So there's monsters everywhere. But so does that excuse it? Because probably my favorite performance of the series is Ari Graynor, who plays Leslie, the lawyer for Eric. She just does a really good job with the defense. She's a neutral character that doesn't kill anybody, so it's easier to rap and isn't accused of like sexual assault. So she's just a lawyer character, a complicated lawyer character. She likes to win. You can see her getting pulled into like Eric's bullshit, and you're like, yeah, I see that. And she seems to genuinely care. Her character evolves. I really like how Ari Graynor plays that character, and I don't know who is going to get a nomination out of this, but I feel like this is, you know, Monster got people nominations, and Niecy Nash obviously won, but I don't know, like, Javier Bardem and Chloe Sevigny were fine in those roles, but it's still Javier Bardem, so there's only just so much excitement I'm going to get over that, because, like, have you seen Javier Bardem's work before? He spends the entire series basically dead, so like everything is in flashback, so everything is like some sort of weird bastardized version of the truth. So he has to play these like weird interpretations of Jose Hernandez, Menendez. Sorry, I'm getting the Aaron Hernandez story. I've been talking about that. Menendez, and he, I don't know, he has some moments that work. He has like this phone call home to his mom that work, but at the same time, I'm like, he was fantastic in No Country for Old Men. Like, some of his film work is just like how do I want to give him an Emmy nomination? No, I don't even care. Like, it's weird. It's not like he's bad, but at the same time, it's like, it's how Javier Bardem is. I mean, like, his performances, like the sea inside and stuff like that. It's just like, he's been like way better. He's had such better performances to give. This feels just like anyone could have done this. Same with Chloe Sevigny, who, really interestingly, because I didn't know the cast at first, I heard Laura Linney's voice, and then it ended up being Chloe Sevigny, and I was like, oh, I was wrong. My bad. Sorry. So like for a little while I was picturing Javier Bardem and Laura Linney, and then I heard the cast. I was like, oh, it's Chloe Sevigny. Oh, because I didn't look up the cast list in advance to see who is who. I like trying to see if I can pick out voices and if I'm right. Like Nathan Lane, I was like, that's Nathan Lane. Jeff Perry, because I'm a huge fan of Scandal. So even though he's not in the series that much, he's in this. So I pulled some voices out. right away. And I knew who they were. And Javier Bardem, I knew who, yeah, I was like, yep, that's Javier. Yeah, so I was kind of like, who's playing Eric and Lyle? It's basically two actors I've never heard of, which is fine because you kind of need two people who look similar. They're not twins, they're brothers. I think people think they're twins, but they're not. They're actually not even the same age. And but they have this very similar personality. It feels very Bret Easton Ellis to me. It feels very like they grew up, like if they wrote down what's your favorite novel and it was American Psycho, I would not be surprised at all. I feel like American Psycho is like their bread and butter, rules of attraction, like that kind of thing. But they feel like characters who just fell out of a Bret Easton Ellis novel. So yeah, that was my opinion. But at the same time, it's interesting because they parallel each other so well that I wouldn't, in terms of like their acting, I'd have a hard time picking one over the other because I don't think you can. I kind of wish it could be co-nominated or not nominated at all. I don't want to pick one or the other because part of what's impressive about their performance is that they feel authentic as brothers. Taking out everything else, taking out them as killers, driving up sympathy, anything like that, they feel like they have these shared personality traits where it's what I think has so many people confused about them being twins, is that they're so alike in personality. And for these two characters who are different and have different experiences, but to also share these, they share so much, and they feel very similar in many ways. To have two completely different actors who are not related playing these characters, I thought that was what was impressive to me. I want to be very careful in not giving Eric a nomination, the guy who plays Eric, a nomination for episode 5, because that episode bothered me. Because if it's bullshit, then it's like being in a support group, like in Fight Club, where there's somebody there who doesn't belong, and then they're trying to talk about their thing, and you're like, well, that's all bullshit. You don't actually have cancer, like, or, you're at a support group for people who have lost children, and you find out somebody didn't actually lose their child, but yet they're like up there and they're crying and they're like, it's really bad and I can't, I miss and then something like, well, you didn't lose your child. There's something to it. There's this thing that because they lied 99 other times, and somebody's like trying to tell me, well, maybe on the 100th time they didn't lie. And I'm like, I guess maybe, but I also, for something of this magnitude, don't want to just rest my entire life on, oh, well, maybe this one thing that Eric said was true, and everything else was a lie, just not this one thing. So Ryan Murphy does a good job of painting them as villains, but at the same time, not, because he also uses a lot of what they say in flashbacks, which paints Jose and Kitty as being monsters themselves. So then the same thing happens later on with the psychiatrist. So it's like everybody becomes monsters. So then it's like, was anybody a victim? You know what I'm saying? It's like, at the same time, if that's the route you're taking, these are very weird things that Ryan Murphy is producing right now. The Aaron Hernandez thing and this are just very odd choices. I hate to say it, but you almost have to pick somebody who's clearly like, oh yeah, everyone hates that guy, like, and then just like fucking go into it. You know what I'm saying? Like like Monster, the Osama bin Laden story. Like, no one's gonna sympathize with that. So just fucking tell that story, man. Just be like, and don't try to be like, well, he was misunderstood, or, well, he had a point here. Like, oh, what if this story that Osama told was really like great and it was true? You know, I don't know that nobody came here for that. I didn't come here to feel bad for Eric Menendez, and Lyle and be like, maybe they were, maybe that one thing that they were saying was true. You know, I think it's bullshit. I think their thing is bullshit. I think it's funny that Eric is saying that the show is bullshit. So, very interesting. So, I don't even know how. Do we give him a Netflix in prison? Like, how has he seen the story? First of all, that's what I want to know. Have people just like casually told him about it? Who's talking to Eric Menendez? But who are these people? I was thinking about that too, because they have such a huge focus on people who, like, they're like outside the jail and they're cheering for Eric and Lyle, and then they're like these women who are writing Eric and Lyle. I'm like, these are real people. Like, you could just be in a store one day and, like, you bump your cart into somebody and you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Can you hand me that can of a jar of pickles there? Just, it's next to mustard. Just give that to me. And then they'll be like, oh my God, yes, of course I can. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be in. Oh, it's fine. And then it turns out, like, you're like, oh, that person writes love letters to Eric Menendez. But you would have no idea. You're just like, what the fuck is up with this person? Like, life choices, man. Like, what, what are we doing here? Yeah, very weird. This is a weird story. I'm kind of glad I didn't watch the Jeffrey Dahmer thing, because now I'm just overall concerned about how Ryan Murphy approaches these things. But I'm not a huge fan of monsters. The one thing I would say is, as a voter, as a person who votes at least 4 TV awards in one manner, I would say I would vote for Ari Graynor. That's it. That's my one takeaway. I did like Nathan Lane, but he mostly just explains shit to people. That's a large part of what his character does. And it's not that I don't think boys can be victims, but at the same time, I don't think Lyle and Eric Menendez are there to tell that story. I don't think that they're the right people for that angle. If you're trying to, like, remind people men can be victims of this thing too, like Lyle and Eric Menendez. It's a weird thing to say while also pointing out the other 90,000 times they lied, and then try to be like, well, but this one thing was true. Maybe. Question mark? Anyway, excellent audio description though. That the kill sequence is absolutely fucking brutal. It's gory as hell. I don't know. I feel bad for surviving family members, anybody who tried to see that and see the representation of what was happening, because the team went absolutely all out. But you kind of have to show, to immediately put you, he does the same thing in American Sports Story. He starts off with the shooting, but then he goes and starts into apology mode. The difference here is that even though Aaron Hernandez is kind of a dick for the first 2 episodes of that show, he's nothing compared to Eric and Lyle Menendez, who are never relatable and are complete assholes the whole time. Like, I never once liked Lyle Menendez, and the only time you ever find yourself sympathizing with Eric is when he's barraging you with it, like, an impossible to not be, have any sort of an emotional reaction to what he's saying in episode 5. It's impossible to sit through that for as long as you have to sit through it and not have at least some kind of reaction to it. But then when it's done, you're like, but it was fucking Eric Menendez, like, you set him up as being a liar and you continue to follow through with him being a liar afterwards. So what is this episode even doing in the middle of the show? Like, why was that the whole fucking episode? Why did we give him that much time to go into that much graphic detail when there are people who really do go through that? We're sure they went through that. Rape kits and everything have proven that they went through that. And yet he's the representation? I don't like it. I'm going to give Monsters a C. I think there's some acting here that keeps it, like, floatable, I guess you could say. But 9 episodes in, and I don't know why people are all up about this Ryan Murphy stuff. I'm not. So anyway, that's it. I watched the whole fucking thing. So there you go. Enjoy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side.